I'm a Miami alum. I'm a Miami fan like y'all. Like, I get it. But this continual pushing of like, oh, well, this has to be the year. It's rinse and repeat. And I get that people recycle content. I copy and paste some things, and I recycle content streams. Hey, the early summer preview, position previews, some of those are up on StateOfTheU.com. The game previews for this season, obviously, we look at it in the prism of every season. But like, yeah, this year having to be the make or break or whatever, I think it's overstated. And the other thing for me is if we looked at 2022, Manny Diaz's last year, as 21, excuse me. If you're saying that's a make or break year because we're going to fire you and go get somebody else, that makes sense. You ain't firing Mario. And I don't think you should either. So, like, where's the make or break? Where's the it has to be? I mean, last year was a great scenario set up for Miami to be successful. This year, different, but also the same. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. And maybe it just comes down to the way that I view things, and that is different from some, other people. But I mean, it's just how many years are the need to be the year? Because if we're talking about that, last year was that year or one of those years. And then if last year was one of those years, which I and pretty much everybody said that it was, how on God's green earth are people accepting of the failure at Syracuse? Either. Obviously, Georgia Tech was a tough loss. You can really point to the fact that they won the money down, but see, you're up 21-0. You're up 21-0. And you lose 42-17 from them in 3 quarters of football, because it was 21-0 early in the second quarter. I mean, if this was a make or break season, how are you not calling for Mario's job then? Like, what's the other side of the scenario? So I mean, like, does Miami need to find a breakthrough year? Yes. And this is like what I talked about with the Notre Dame guy, Brian, right?
Yes. When
he was on, say, oh, well, yeah, if you lose, 2 ACC games and one of them's in November, or one, I said, you gotta navigate a season. Even if we lose another November game, you're right back here talking about Syracuse again. You're right back here talking about Pittsburgh at the end of the season, multiple years. You're right back here talking about the fact that this team finds a way to lose games that they shouldn't, even with the talent and performance advantage throughout the rest of the season. It's just, I want Miami to win. I think that everything is set up for Miami to win. I just think positioning it as a necessity in this season as such, without there being consequences and repercussions for failure to achieve, is a fool's errand.
When I hear the term make or break, I think of 3 scenarios. One would be you are a program that rarely competes, rarely has, and overall does not have the resources and the structure to compete at a high level. Purdue, Wake Forest, et cetera, et cetera. But you have lightning in a bottle for that year. You've collected a group of players, you have a schedule, you just have things, and you have to hit it that year, because then it's not coming around for 5 years, 10 years, who knows when. So there's one.
And to your point, from both of those schools, we've seen that year. Obviously, the God rest his soul, the Tyler kid from Purdue,
Sure.
the super fan who
Yes.
had terminal cancer, and then what was it, Riley at Wake Forest, the quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Well, are you thinking about Wake Forest going to the conference championship game with Sam Hartman?
I wasn't, but fine. There, Riley Skinner, who wrote all those records.
Yeah.
But yeah, even Sam Hartman. But so we've seen in the past 10 years, the one season from those teams, nary to be seen again. Miami's not in that kind of position. But I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, they're not. No. I am not putting Miami in that class. I'm just
saying no.
There's a category of school that can't consistently win.
Right. And we agree that obviously, those are a tier below Miami. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. And then for me, there's another category of team where they're loaded. They've loaded up for that year. And even though they should be competitive all the time, this team just really needs to, because they've put it all together. They've retained a roster plus added to it. They need to knock down the door and get it done. And then there's a third category that involves the coach, as you mentioned. This coach received big money, big expectations, and there's been, let's say, 4 or 5, we won't even say failing shortcomings, and it's just time to say, hey, he needs to pull through this year or we need to move on. Those are kind of the 3 that I came up with in regards to what I would consider a make or break type situation.
Yeah.
Because you could say that about every team every year. It's a make or break.
Right. Pretty much. But I mean, again, but to my, point that I spoke about at length, Miami was it gift wrapped last year. Yeah. Absolutely gift wrapped. I mean, crazy the way that the schedule broke, lined up. You play Louisville, and that's pretty much it. Like, there was no Clemson, there was no SMU. It just, and you fumbled that bag, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it should be. I mean, yeah, Miami's built a program and a iteration of, and the team representing that program this year that could and should perform and succeed. But yeah, I don't necessarily see that. And maybe it's semantics, but we live in a world of words.
I don't remember what the conversation was exactly, but I remember myself making a comment, and this was about 5 weeks out from that Syracuse game, that could be the team, that could be the structured team that has a dynamic that on the right day, on the average day, they put up points and yards, but Miami wins 42-28. That's kind of like the average, the aggregate over 100 times. Miami's going to beat them by 2 touchdowns because they're just more talented. But Syracuse is going to score and do what they do, and that's throw the ball all over the world last year. But obviously in the right situation, that was the scary one. That was they got a few receivers and that quarterback on the right day, and that's what played out.
But again, up 21-0 in the second quarter, like a literal, video game past the sticks moment, right? You got to find a way to shepherd that to conclusion. You got to land that plane. You know what I mean? And I mean, and it wasn't even like, now, I mean, there was a turnover, but it wasn't even like, Cal turnover, just back to back to back, like multiple. And that'll, like, you just, yeah. Anyways. So.
And then the other thing that comes to mind at the outset of your dissertation was the lineup of the typical Miami season and the talent comparison against the schedule and where that stands that I completely agree with. So at worst, it's about a 9-3 break even. If every time you walk on the field, you beat the team that you are more talented than every time, let's say over the course of 10 or 15 years, every game Miami plays, they beat every team that has an inferior roster. They lose to every team that has a superior roster. And then let's say they split. So the coaching is negated. It's just marginal, decent coaching. Obviously, you look at the records and you stack that up against what should be 9-3, 10-2 all the time, pretty much. Obviously, every team's a little bit different, but generally 9-3, 10-2. There's obviously been a deficiency in coaching.
Yeah. And look, again, sometimes you get bad breaks, and there's player performance and luck and everything involved also. But I mean, yeah. So it should. I mean, I've seen the early line was over under 9.5. I saw Circus Sports recently came out right at 9 over under for Miami in the regular season. So a push is possible on that, but I mean, again, it needs to be 10 and going to Charlotte. Not 10 and sitting home like last year. Falcon TRX, Gino Toretta on Gruden podcast was very good. Okay. I did see a clip when Toretta was talking about his top 5 Canes all the time, but I don't really. I'm not the target demographic for the outlet that John Gruden works for. And so I usually do not partake of their content. But I did see that clip from Gino. Any season. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're alluding to what I think you're alluding to, yes. Yeah, I won't say anything else.
Any season Miami doesn't win an Natty is a break, Falconer. Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, but it's been forever. It's been a good long time, and teams that could compete. Not saying all of them that would have won, but teams that were that could reasonably compete continue to find ways to lose games to teams they shouldn't. And it, like, if that's the point of conversation, like Miami needs to hold serve on all of the games and then win some of the big ones, right? As well, and not drop any of the stupid ones, right? So it's kind of a 3-part. Win the games you're supposed to win. Don't lose the games you're supposed to win. I know it sounds the same. Those are different things. And you as a Miami fan know exactly what I'm talking about. So win the games you're supposed to win. Don't lose the games you're supposed to win. And then win the other games that are toss-up or underdog games. Large, in general. Then you're looking at probably 10 or 11 wins in the regular season. I think this team is talented enough for that. I know last year's team was, but the defense was deficient, and then injury on top of injury on top of injury on top of injury last year. I mean, Damari Brown, Jadis Richard, the secondary was paper thin, and then that paper got ripped to shreds. So then, yeah, we're playing guys like who shouldn't really. And I mean, we saw, but you're still even trying to find a way past that. I saw a lot of people asking, am I saying that Mario is not a good recruiter? I didn't say that. I just said that there has been consistent performance from the staff that he oversees and directs that has had some trouble in the month of July. Take that as you will, but I did not say that he's a bad recruiter. I believe he's one of, if not, he's one of the best head coach recruiters around. George asked an interesting question. Who would I take this year at quarterback, DJ Lagway or Carson Beck? I think that there's a reasonable argument for either. If you're looking in a vacuum, I could see why you would want either, in a vacuum as in for this year. I could see there's a reasonable argument for both. If you're taking the full cycle of eligibility timeline of, you will have this player at quarterback for the remainder of their collegiate eligibility. Well, then, that means I get maximum of 16 games of Carson Beck, or 2, if not 3 years of DJ Lagway. When you put that into it, I mean, come on, like that's not. Let's be real. But yeah, for this year, I think that there's a reasonable case to be made for both. And yeah, I mean, one of those players will end up being better than the other in performance this year. I reasonably think it could be either my recruiting brain leans a little bit towards number 2 in Alachua County, because I did see what he did in high school and everything, and I'm not going to be one to sit here and lie to y'all. But yeah, I think there's a reasonable argument on both sides for that. When you're looking at a 1-year sample, if you're looking at for the remaining duration of eligibility, the youth of the sophomore versus the 5th year senior takes over.
Got a few super chats to hit here. We've got Paolo, screw make or break. I need consistency and progress.
Consistency, I agree. I hear you. Consistency and progress then is 10-2, but 7-1 in the conference and making it to Charlotte. That is consistent number of wins, progress in the ACC record, and progress from not making it to Charlotte to making it to Charlotte. And I don't necessarily, I want to go 12-0, duh. But to your point, to fit that consistency of double-digit wins and progress in which, where the wins came, that's where I would be.
Then we've got Falconer coming back with this one. Check out the new show with the student hosts.
Okay.
And then we've got Paolo coming back. I would take over 8 to 9 wins a year for the next 10 years, sprinkled with a couple of 11+ win seasons than the roller coaster from 2005 to 21.
Miami Hurricanes record by year. Let's see.
Sorry to rip on Paolo's comment there, but of course he would, because 2005 to 21 was 7, 8, 5, 7.
No, it was 9 and 05.
Yeah,
but
I'm not literally hitting the years, but I'm just.
There are a lot of 6s and 7s.
Yeah.
From 5 to 14, there are 2 9s in there, but everything else is a 6 or a 7. So 8 6 or 7 win seasons and 2 9s, okay. Now, it's been a little bit better from there. There's been 3 7s, a 6, and then obviously the 5 and 7. But in 16 you had a 9 and then a 10. And then it fell off. Then you had an 8, and then it fell off. And that last year you had a 10. So, it's basically consistent 8 or 9 is taking a step forward from the last 20 years because, I'm not doing all of the math, but I just told you, what the, records were from then. I still think I would like more. And I think that we're in a position to push for more. And, 8 or 9 with a couple. So basically, Paula, what you're saying is you want Mark Richt's tenure from Georgia. That's what you're saying. Right?
I think
lots of 9s, a couple of 10, some 10s and everything. But really pushing towards championships was few and far between. It was a lot of years where there were 9s and okay, maybe not 8s, but 9s and 10s. Georgia.
I think his is pretty strong. I got it right here.
It's very strong. It's very strong.
But I think it's I know that he finished in the top 10 more times, more than half of his years at Georgia.
Mark Richt. First year 8, 13, 11, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10, 8, 6, 10, 12, 8, 10, 10, 10. or 9, and then he left for the bowl game.
Yeah.
Like, so slightly okay. There was more 10, so it's basically 9s and 10s instead of 8s and 9s, but wasn't really no championships in there, like, which was the issue. So which is why he didn't coach there anymore. And they went to go get Kirby Smart because they said top 10 recruiting classes and 9.5 win average or 10 win even average ain't good enough. But I get it from there has to be a step forward because, like I said, there have been a lot of 6s and 7s over the last 20 years for Miami as opposed to 8s and 9s. But I don't think I hear you with your comment, Paulo. I don't think in practice the 8-win seasons or 9 wins even on a consistent basis, I think that you would get tired of that. I think that there would be a measure of Mark Richt at Georgia or Lloyd Carr at Michigan where, it's 9-3 is great, but why do we keep losing those other 2? Why isn't it 11 every year? Why isn't it, why are we losing to our rivals all the time? Like, why are we, because those things then become the focus, right?
Sure.
Okay, we're beating, and again, I remember this with Lloyd Carr at Michigan. You're beating Northwestern. You're beating Minnesota. You're getting, the Little Brown Jug every year. You're beating Wisconsin most times, but you're losing to those people from Columbus. You're not getting, you're not winning championships anymore because Michigan hadn't won one since '97. And not only are you losing to a rival, you're finding a way to lose another game. So maybe you're losing to a Michigan State, maybe you're losing to a Penn State, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, leaders and best and everything, but like we went 9-3, and there are a lot of teams that fired their coach because they went 4-8. Cool. What that got to do with me hating the fact and having to wear the fact that we didn't lost to who we lost to every year and not taking advantage of having, who was it? Chad Henne, Mike Hart, and Jake Long back for senior year for the express purpose of going to the national championship game, and which they all said at the time, go look it up, and getting their doors blown off by Oregon. And this is before Oregon was really Oregon, but that was the game that made Oregon at Michigan's expense. And then you go through and have a pretty good season, but then you've lost that. You figure this out. Like that. I mean, you play to win the game. And I know that winning more games would feel good, but like I really think that like after a couple 8 or 9 win seasons, it really becomes less about the 8 or the 9 and more about the 3 or the 4
Absolutely.
that you lost.
Absolutely.
Because even with the 10-win season, what are we talking about from last year?
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Like that's where it goes. So, I mean, I hear you. I just having lived it, I mean, with Miami and with Michigan, which y'all know I'm from there, and that was the team of my youth and my fandom. I'm telling you, you think that that's what you would want. And I disagree.
Yeah, I'll come at this with 2 other comments, and then I'm good to go. I'll come at it from the Mark Richt defense one more time. Put it this way. Miami, I think we looked at this recently. The last time Miami finished in the top 10 in the country in the final AP poll was either 04 or 5. So that was roughly 20 years ago. Mark Richt finished in the top 10 8 times in 15 years.
No, and I hear you, but my point is,
yes,
even with
that,
right,
yeah.
even with 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, he spoiled the Georgia people, and then the focus at the end, which is why they ran him off, was cool. 5 is good. Why it's not 1, Mark?
Yeah,
I mean Mark Richt, not Mark Rogers. You know what I mean? But like
why do we always have?
You want to win?
Yes.
Why is our ceiling? Like, yeah, we're in the top 5 and everything, but we're losing. We're not. Yeah. We're not at the top of the pack.
Yes. For a fan base here that's living on a 60% winning percentage for the last 20 years. It sounds good that you would love to have a 7 next to your name at the end of the year, or a 4 or a 9, or to live in the top 10. But yeah, once you do that, and I'll throw Urban Meyer out there. He lost 9 games in 7 years at Ohio State. Those aren't even regular season yet. Those are all games.
Hold on, yeah.
But what becomes the focus is, man, if he would have won that one and that one, then you're like your string of national titles, and people are upset because they're like, we were that close to like total domination. Yeah, that becomes exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The focus does get flipped.
Well, we do appreciate you all being here, folks, and make it on back next week.